Hey, Foot Clan, all you sports memorabilia lovers. We've told you about pristineauction.com, one of our absolute favorite websites. You can go on there. There are hundreds of daily auctions. And right now they're doing a special giveaway for you, the listener. They're giving away a signed, huge David Johnson canvas. And the way that you can enter and win this giant canvas autographed by David Johnson himself is head over to social media. Go to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Post why you deserve it. That's all you got to do. And make sure you use the hashtag #PristineAuction, and you can win your own exclusive autographed David Johnson canvas.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Hello. Hey, how you doing? How you doing, everybody?
I am amped up for today's show.
You know, on the top of our show notes, it said Tuesday, which is it's just a lie.
I apologize that I did not update
You
that.
didn't change it. So Thursday, May 26th.
I mean, you almost fell for my trap.
Yeah, I've fallen for that trap from you many times. Welcome to the show, the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Jason Moore is here.
I am here. I'm excited. I'm happy to be here.
You're very happy. You're fresh off a trade in our League of Record that made me want to weep this morning. I may have threatened him with a butcher knife.
Yeah, that's a true story.
That's not a lie. Mike, the Fantasy Hitman, is here.
I am, and I'm glad to be here.
Both of you have traded with this owner in our League of Record, and both of you have trades that I wish you didn't have. So I'm doing a public call out to thousands of people and telling that owner to stop it unless it's me. So
Nope.
trade with me.
Don't trade with Andy.
What do we got going on the show today? We got Jamey Eisenberg from CBS Sports is joining us. I think we have a really fun show because we're talking about guys that could either regress or impress.
It's a rhyme, and that makes it good.
That makes it worthy of our time if it's a rhyme.
Oh!
All right, so we got that on today's show.
Oh, I thought you were going to full let it flow and freestyle for the Foot Clan.
Well, that wouldn't end very well. Nope, not going to happen, Mike. Music is your specialty. Mine is carrying the show along, and that's what I'm going to do right now. If you want to connect with us, you can do so on the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. That's where you can submit questions to the show. Today we're answering a lot of Foot Clan listener questions as well, so we take those from what comes in on the website. You can follow us on Twitter at the FFBallers, and you can subscribe. We're asking all the Foot Clan, go to YouTube, subscribe to the show on YouTube. It helps us out. It gets you access to exclusive YouTube content. We're putting unique things up there. That's where we put all of our water bet payout videos. That's where we put our show after the show.
The show after the show, people. If you're not in on what's going on
People
YouTube.
really enjoy it. And the request we get most is, why isn't it longer?
Ooh.
So we're going to have to give some thought into that.
Interesting.
But before we get into the quick question, which is about running backs, I want to highlight something that is taking place this Sunday, May 29th, for a period of 2 weeks. Now, if you heard the last show, you know we've had the honor and privilege of being nominated for the Best Overall Sports Podcast at podcastawards.com and for the People's Choice Award at podcastawards.com. And that is very exciting. We're very thankful for you because you voted and nominated us for those awards. And so what that means is now that we've been selected, and there were a lot of shows.
Here comes the work.
Here comes the work. We now have the opportunity from the 29th for 2 weeks. So this Sunday for 2 weeks, you can go every day and vote for the show. And that's one of the things that separates us to win it, to actually win the thing. And so what we're doing is we want to make this a big deal. We want to make this really fun. And so we're asking you to go and vote every day. If you enjoy this show and you want to support us.
Foot Clan, assemble!
Oh, you wanted your, what was it, the Horn of Gondor? Do you think they respond well to that?
Who does not? Whenever you hear that, you know that something serious is about to happen.
You get up off the couch and you run.
You run. So do it again. There you go. So Foot Clan, assemble. Here's what we're doing. If you vote, every day that you vote during that time period, we're going to give you an entry into some giveaways that we're doing. We're going to give away a signed, listen to this, a signed Le'Veon Bell jersey.
I can't believe we're doing this.
It's breaking Mike's heart. He didn't want to give it away.
And this is the first time we've mentioned
bigger.
it.
This is
This
bigger.
the first
Way
time
bigger.
we've mentioned it.
The Fantasy Footballers Listener League.
One entry is up for grabs in the Fantasy Footballers Listener League. We haven't even opened that up yet this summer.
I've got a golden ticket. You've got a golden ticket.
What is that?
That was
voice?
amazing. That was amazing.
Yeah, so get your golden
That's
ticket into the
Charlie?
Listener League. Come on into the Chocolate Factory. And, yeah, every
We
single
got to
day.
explain how to enter, though.
Okay, so the way you enter is you go to podcastawards.com starting on Sunday. You vote for us, and then you
They need a hashtag.
You
Foot
show
Clan-
us. You show us that you voted, and it
Yeah.
counts as an entry. So we need to decide on that hashtag here.
Foot Clan vote.
All right.
Hashtag Foot Clan vote with a screenshot proving that you have voted on that day. Each day you do that, you get an entry into the raffle.
Yeah, and we're going to give away some second and third place prizes, too. We're going to give away some stickers. We're going to give away some other stuff. So it's going to be awesome.
Let's win this thing,
Let's
people.
do it. Let's do it, Foot Clan. The Horn of Gondor, you'll hear it frequently
Yes.
over the next 2 weeks. So, all right, quick question of the day, guys. I just want your general thoughts on the state of the running back position in
I like
fantasy
it.
football. This is something that rises and falls with different strategies and thought processes, and ultimately league scoring systems matter as well. But what are your thoughts on the state of the running back
I'm
position?
gonna take this. I'm gonna kick this thing off because I actually like where the running back position is this year. I think it is going to be undervalued by the majority of the fantasy football community. It felt like there was an extreme amount of busting last year. You combine the busting with what people believe of the devaluation of the running back position. I think it is just an evolution of the running back where years ago you had to have one of those workhorse 3-down guys to have any shot to win. And now it is just different. You don't have to have those guys. More running backs are now useful. You get Charles Sims, you get Danny Woodheads, Bilal Powells, Theo Riddicks. These guys have fantasy value, not just the people playing in front of them. So I like where the running back is. On top of that, like I was saying, where we felt like there was a much more busting that happened last year. That it is true. However, compared to the previous years, that was an anomalous outlier of a year, and people are going to overreact. I think the busting will return to where it normally is, and you are going to get some screaming values on top-end running backs.
For me, when I look at the running back landscape as a whole, the first thing that comes to mind is meat. It's meaty.
That's most situations in your life. though.
Yes. Well, right. All situations I think of, what food is this? And so I have decided.
They don't call you double stuff for no reason.
I have decided that the running back position right now, it's a New York steak right now because it's plentiful.
Oh.
I'm not talking like the filet mignon. I'm not talking about the top end talent.
Right.
The running back position over the last decade has been easily the position with the least amount of depth. You have to get guys at the beginning because if not, you're going to be completely screwed. And it's not true this year at all. I actually think the running back class is extremely deep. I mean, some of the guys you just mentioned, right? You know, you got Danny Woodhead and Duke Johnson that are going as the 34th and 35th running back. I mean, you've got depth here where you can get guys very late as running backs who are playing, not just guys that you have to wait and they're only a handcuff, but people who can produce for your teams. Frank Gore
Here's the mid-round picks from our last show that were running backs because the last show is mid-round madness. So you got Frank Gore, Matt Jones, TJ Yeldon, Amir Abdullah. Those were 4 of the 9 that we mentioned in mid-round values. And obviously there are a lot of other names, Gio Bernard and Danny Woodhead and
Ryan Matthews
Sims
and Melvin Gordon. And I mean, there's so many. Jonathan Stewart.
But you both said the same thing. You both said that essentially, Mike, you were talking about the fact that they'll contribute, right?
Yes.
You have a lot of fantasy contributors at running back, but you don't have as many fantasy dominators at the position.
You don't have the LTs that are going to win your league for you because you had the 101 pick. But that's why I'm saying I think it's just an evolution of how people have to think about the running back position, which people are. I mean, you have these zero RB, which has gone from this idea where people are like, well, that's absolutely ridiculous, to now that is very widespread and thought of as a very viable strategy because it is.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting because you have dominators at wide receiver right now at this time in the NFL. You have, the three big guys that Odell Beckham Jr., Julio Jones, and Antonio Brown, who there's no way other than injury that they're not going to produce at a very high level. And so it just changes the landscape. I appreciate the thought process there because I think you both said the reality right now, which is that you have a lot of guys, and it should make you adjust your draft a little bit.
Don't be down on it. I mean, embrace the change. You got to move forward.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
All right. The big news here is Tyler Eifert. This is
what?
I feel lucky because we have been off the Tyler Eifert express for the offseason, and not because we anticipated ankle surgery, which is the news here.
I did.
But it's just fortunate because I think what we said is we like Tyler Eifert, but his value's too high. So if you had drafted or if you had your keeper deadline and those things had taken place, dynasty startups, those type of things, you might have avoided buying him at the level he was going at. Now it's going to change, right? He had ankle surgery, and Adam Schefter reported he's in jeopardy for week 1. Even Eifert, I believe, came out and said, "Hey, on my worst case, I miss a couple games."
But that's a pretty worst case, Tyler Eifert.
It is in NFL terms not as big of a deal.
Right.
Not as big of a deal for him. Okay, I'll be back. We'll make our playoff push. It won't be a big deal. I'm going to contribute all year. For a fantasy owner, and for a fantasy owner wanting to make Eifert a higher draft pick, where was his AD? Do we know where his ADP was, his average draft position, before this news?
I think Jason's pulling it up.
Yeah,
I'm going to guess it was
4th round?
I would guess 4th round.
Eifert was 4th round, back of the 4th.
And the biggest question I'm getting on Twitter is Tyler Kroft. Can he fill the shoes for Eifert? 3rd round pick, big guy, was considered one of the best tight ends in his draft. And Andy is
you know what it is? The biggest question you got on Twitter, and I don't say this type of thing very often, it's the most annoying question. It's only the most annoying question because it doesn't – it's the most obvious question. You just think, okay, so is the guy right behind him going to make a big difference? I mean, a 3rd round tight end for a couple of games. I mean, you had 1st round tight ends that make no impact in the beginning of the season.
But of their first year. This is not Kroft.
No, even in the 2nd year. Tight ends take a couple of years to really come on.
I'm just saying I would be so hard-pressed to
Look,
Zach Sudfeld, okay? Oh, Zach Sudfeld had an opportunity in a super offense, and he came out and he just laid an egg in the beginning of the season. I wouldn't even be thinking about Tyler Kroft.
Look. Okay. Tyler Eifert, gone. Tyler Kroft, nobody. But the Tyler Triangle continues.
Oh.
And we have Tyler Boyd, who
Yes.
I would say is like mashed potatoes. They're the best side dish. It's so delicious. It's a side dish who's going to be really...
You can put mashed potatoes in the slot.
Yeah, exactly. You can put mashed potatoes in the slot. You can
In your mouth slot.
They're very malleable.
Yeah.
Right, they're malleable.
But it is good for him to have the opportunity in the red zone. He's a good-sized player who now, with Tyler Eifert possibly missing those first few games, you've got more reps in the OTAs, more reps in training camp, more reps in preseason.
That's true.
And there could be a value there to Tyler Boyd. I worry with this that he's going to now jump up too high.
He will.
Because of how people are overvaluing rookie wide receivers in general.
We almost got the Wookiee
Almost got
again.
the Wookiee out there. So this might be bad for my love of Tyler Boyd because it might push him out of where I would draft him. But I do think that's the guy to consider in Cincinnati.
We have a lot of news to cover, but I'm not going to leave this because I think we got distracted with Tyler Kroft. The question here is, what do you do as a Tyler Eifert owner,
Sure.
and what do you do when you draft Tyler Eifert? What is his value? Does it now drop to a place that you want him? If he misses 2 games, let's sort out there.
Okay.
He's going to miss 2 games.
I feel like Tyler Eifert was pretty much a lock to miss 2 games anyway.
Oh.
No, I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm saying 14 games. Now, granted, by that same logic, you'd say, well, he might not play all 14. But if I knew for sure Tyler Eifert was going to play 14 out of 16 games, I'm fine with that. I don't really worry about that too much. The problem that I have is I don't like rostering at the draft later on in the season, for various reasons, my strategy changes. But at the draft, I don't like having 2 tight ends. And so if you draft Tyler Eifert, you have to draft another tight end, and I don't want to give up that spot. So for me, he's almost a value that is not going like.
Where is it though?
Let somebody else do it.
Where's the over/under for you?
For me?
So Eifert,
for me, it's like round 9.
Okay, I was gonna say 8 for me.
For me, it's like 12 because I already know that I have to take 2 picks if I'm taking Tyler
None of
Eifert.
us are going to get Tyler Eifert.
No.
With those draft rounds, even round 8, he'll go in the 6th.
Yeah, that seems.
He'll go in the 6th
seems
or
right.
higher. Dion Lewis to be ready for week 1. I don't remember how much we talked about this on the show.
Well, I've said it before. I'll say it again. He is like butter. So I'm just
great.
gonna keep
Great.
the food thing going here.
We'll let you go to lunch. Dion Lewis to be back for week 1. We know that they didn't address the running back position in the draft. They have LeGarrette Blount. They have Dion Lewis. This is encouraging news. They're going to be conservative with him, but he'll be back for week 1. He's a value to me. Knowshon Moreno says he plans to continue playing in 2016. Knowshon Moreno is an interesting guy because there are teams that might be looking for a complimentary running back. He's been known to take over a starting job due to sheer hard work and effort. And you're talking about Oakland might need a back. Washington might need a back. Baltimore needs a 15th back. No, not really. Miami. So Knowshon Moreno's 28 years old. He had played well. He went to Miami. He started well. He tore his ACL, and he hasn't been seen since. So I just wanted it on the radar because people aren't aware of that.
Yeah, I think it's worth keeping on your radar because he's a talented player, and we've also seen other players when they have some time off away at the running back position, they can come back and produce. You saw that with Ricky Williams. You saw that last year with Tim Hightower. So just because now he's been gone for a while, sometimes we think, oh, well, then that means he's done. Not necessarily. At 28, when a talented guy, if he comes back, he could produce fantasy value. And
Miami could be a destination, like you said. Speaking of Miami, they're also monitoring Arian Foster. There is an interview with Arian Foster where he basically said, he has to wait a month because that's what they want him to wait before he can kind of get through the physical stuff. Mm-hmm. But there are teams that are already interested.
Man, he's gonna mess things up
for some. Yes, Arian Foster is going to mess something up for somebody.
Yeah, well, which is only if you draft early, right? If you draft late, which we recommend here, at least after the 3rd preseason game, if you're in a redraft league, hopefully maybe even after the 4th.
Oh, you're talking
game.
Fantasy owners. I was talking about messing with an actual team. He's going to mess with.
Oh, really? You think?
Whoa.
What do you mean?
You think he will be bad for a team?
No. I'm saying he's going to ruin a backfield for fantasy owners. He's going to go into Oakland and make Latavius Murray less valuable.
Yeah.
He's going to go into Miami and make Jay Ajayi less valuable. And so you said it's only a problem if you draft late. Well, it still thins out the value at the running back position if he joins a backfield and is that type of a guy.
Gotcha.
Matt Jones in Washington, whatever it might be. All right, I want to talk about this one. Eddie Lacy's still in the 240s, Mike.
Speaking of food.
Still in the 240s.
Oh, that's perfectly fine.
He's 231 at the combine, and McCarthy says, I believe he will hit the target we're all looking for when the lights come on, which means he has not hit that target
He is
yet.
in the 240s, and the rumors in the bushes, he was playing in the 260s. So that means he has already done some serious
That's the
work.
argument where it's like, I'm going on a diet. I'm no longer eating 8 pizzas. I'm going to eat 2.
No.
He
He looks great. And on top of that, even if he's in the 240s, what do you think he played at his sophomore year? It was definitely not 231.
Well, here's what in his sophomore year he was great. The worry with Eddie Lacy, the only worry, because I'm excited about this new workout regimen, the new eating. I think anytime that a player is healthier and more athletic, it's going to be a good thing, right? The only worry was he played as a big back. Like, he was always a big back. So I was happy to see that he's still up at 240. I mean, that's really big for a normal running back. And so he's got the athleticism mixed with the size that he needs to be the player he has always been.
You heard it here first. No matter what the Eddie Lacy news is, Mike and Jason will like it. That is what that means. Because if he loses weight, that's great. If he still has quite a bit of that weight to him, that's how he plays.
Well, because it's both of those things, which is great.
I would be far more enticed by the simple fact they didn't add more running backs to that backfield.
If he was 220, I would be scared off of Eddie Lacy.
All right. Well, I agree with that.
That's my point.
And he's made up some ground, but this was not necessarily written as a positive thing. He still has a goal to hit, is what McCarthy said, and he's yet to hit it. So,
Good. Keep working.
the league has awarded the 2019 through 2021 Super Bowls to Atlanta, Miami, and Los Angeles.
Congratulations. cities.
The LA stadium, I assume, it will be open by then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would go with
They're
yes.
going to do it in the streets this year.
Well, no,
So-
I mean as opposed to playing in the Rose Bowl.
Correct. Yeah, it'll be open.
All right. Well, we are going to get to our amazing segment of who of those players who are going to regress or impress. But before we do, let me tell you something that has impressed me. It is our sponsor of today's show, Blue Apron. You heard me talk about it last week. I've seen a lot of our users tweeting out their meals that they have got for free with Blue Apron. Look, not all ingredients are made the same. They're not all created equal. We know that going through fast food restaurants. Blue Apron sends the highest quality meals with prepared recipes, proportioned ingredients. You don't waste anything. It's all local to where you live, fresh, nice. And my favorite part about it, I talked about it last time, is I have been cooking and spending time with my family, with my wife, eating more meals of more variety that are healthy. It's only about $10 a person per meal. It is delicious and great. So we've got a deal for everyone out there who wants to hop on board, get a couple free meals. Check it out. Here's what you do. Check out this week's menu and get your free 2 meals.
Yeah, 2 free meals.
With free shipping by just going to blueapron.com/ballers. And you're going to love how good it feels and how good it tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron. So don't wait. It's blueapron.com/ballers. Blue Apron. It's a better way to cook.
All right, let's talk players that will regress or impress. And by the way, there was a run there of Blue Apron meals where everyone was better than the one before. Like, I was so impressed. These seared pork chops, just incredible.
The steamed bun.
Oh yeah,
tacos.
those ginger steam bun
We call them
taco
cloud buns?
chicken. Oh, they're
Cloud bun.
Oh, they were. I've
Get
never
your
seen
cloud
anything like-
buns here. All right, we're going to talk about a few guys ourselves that we maybe haven't talked about enough on the show, and then we're going to bring in Jamey Eisenberg from CBS Sports and the CBS Sports Today podcast, Fantasy Sports Today, and he's going to share his opinion on 4 or 5 guys that we have on our minds that a lot of players want to know. And you want to know now. You want to know right now, are they going to step it up, impress you, or are they going to regress and make you regret the pick?
Will they regress or will they impress? We're talking about football. I didn't have a drop, so I had
you
to
didn't
do
make
one.
us a drop. That's cool. Where's the guitar, though? I could have given you my guitar. You would have had to do an acoustic, an acoustic rock version. All right. So who do you guys want to start with?
I want to kick this off with Travis Benjamin, signed to the San Diego Chargers, and I will admit, at the beginning of the signing, I kind of dismissed it. I wasn't getting too excited, but I'm actually growing. My excitement is growing for Travis Benjamin. I think that he is a talented player. I think there is a role for him there. Am I calling him a wide receiver 1 or even a 2? No. But he's a guy that I think I want on my fantasy teams because he will have boom games. We're talking about we just talked about the value of Deshaun Jackson, who I think is a great flex play because you don't have to count on him week to week to sustain your team. Well, Travis Benjamin is very similar, and he's going to an offense that's going to have to throw the ball a ton. Last year, Travis Benjamin almost had 1,000 yards for the Cleveland Browns. And I wanted to look back at Malcolm Floyd, the secondary receiver, 2 years ago. Malcolm Floyd, 52 catches, 850 yards, and 6 touchdowns. For a guy that you can get extremely late, I just think he interests me because I think he can surpass what Floyd did.
He is the easy response for Benjamin is to dislike the situation. You know, he got signed. He goes to a team with Keenan Allen, Antonio Gates, other weapons. He was alone and only had 68 receptions in Cleveland. So that's the easy answer. So I like the devil's advocate perspective. Jason, do you have any positive thoughts on Benjamin?
I have thoughts on Benjamin, but I don't know that they're positive. I expect a clear regression for him. He's a guy that I would love to have if I'm playing a best ball league or an MFL 10 where I can get those boom-bust games without having to worry about win. Because what we saw with Malcolm Floyd over his career was he had huge fantasy games. Most of his production came, from half of his games, but predicting when that came, it wasn't, you couldn't say, oh, this team gives up long plays, or this team has a good defense, or this team has a bad defense, and those are what Malcolm Floyd took advantage of, and I see him going into that role. Malcolm Floyd had a long and decent career and never had 900 yards for the Chargers.
So do you have Benjamin over or under that Malcolm Floyd line from 2014, 52, 856, and 6?
I probably have him a smidge over that line, but I don't like the way it's going to come because on my team, I'm never going to start him. And unless there's other injuries or things, which I think I can get Travis Benjamin off the waivers in the middle of the season.
So final word. Impress or regress?
I'm going. What are we going off of their previous stat line?
Correct.
Ooh.
That would be the only way to say impress or regress.
To me, it was over the Malcolm Floyd.
And none of this positive regression things that Jason. The up is down and
that's
and
a
down
teaser
is
for
up.
the draft kit.
Yeah.
Okay, then then he has to regress. He has to regress from last year.
All right, I'm gonna go with regress.
And it'll be a unanimous regression.
All right, so let's talk about another guy here that we have not given enough attention to, that there are question marks about, and that's Jarvis Landry. Let's stay at the wide receiver position. A guy who, look, 111 receptions last year for almost 1,200 yards, 4 touchdowns. The safety valve for Ryan Tannehill, but you have so many new variables in Miami. Rashard Matthews is gone. You have DeVante Parker's second season, actually going to get some playing time. You have Adam Gase coming in. You have this overall malaise that sets upon you when you think about Miami's offense last year and what they did.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jarvis Landry, impress or regress?
So, Jarvis Landry, 111 catches, 1,160 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And I think that what we need to discuss here is, will the change of offense be greater than the chemistry and connection that Ryan Tannehill has looking for Jarvis Landry? Like Andy was saying, he was the safety valve. He's the underneath guy. His yards per catch are quite low for someone who produced so well for fantasy purposes, and he only scored 4 touchdowns. So it's very difficult to see him impressing upon those numbers. I feel like the yards will come down, but there's a possibility the touchdowns go up, so it could be a canceling effect.
Here's the thing about Jarvis Landry. I have moved him up a couple of times in my rankings, and he never climbs very high. And so the problem is he's 42nd in the league in touchdowns.
Yeah.
Those numbers, the PPR numbers are great. And so if you're in a full PPR, he obviously has more value than the half in standard leagues. But in a half-point league, even when I move him up to very generous numbers, because I think he's being dismissed a little too much, he still doesn't end up very high in my rankings. I need to go look and see exactly where he is for us. But Jason, what do you think about Landry?
I like Landry. I immediately was down on Landry entering into the offseason because of Gase coming in and my love for DeVante Parker. Looking at how DeVante Parker, starting in week 12 last week, really took over that outside receiver slot, I thought, this is going to be something where the ball's going to shift and it's going to go away from Landry and it's going to go to Parker. But the more that I've thought about this, I think that Gase is there and going to be good for the offense, good for the wide receivers. And it doesn't just mean that it has to be bad for Landry in order to be good for Parker. Both of these guys can take a step forward, and I don't expect Landry to have more receptions than the 111 he grabbed last year. But if you look at weeks 12 on, when Parker took over, Parker replaced Rashard Matthews. He didn't replace any production from Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry had games with 156 yards and 99 yards and another one over 100. He had multiple double-digit reception games from week 12 on only. So I actually think that the passing game for Ryan Tannehill and the Miami Dolphins could take an overall step forward, and I love the fact that Jarvis Landry's kind of slipping. If you're in a PPR league, I think Jarvis Landry is going to be a decent value. Now, I agree with the point that you made, Andy. He can't go too high. Like, Jarvis Landry is not ever going to be a guy that's just a dominant top 12 wide receiver. I don't see. But I think he is a really, really solid guy that you can get at a place in the draft right now where I am very comfortable with his consistency and his production, and I hope that the touchdowns take a little step up.
I'm gonna read some names here. I'm looking at average draft position and right now in standard, Jarvis Landry is going at close to the beginning of the 4th as the 20th overall wide receiver. So I'm gonna read off some names behind him and see if you would rather have them over Jarvis Landry.
Okay.
All right.
Randall Cobb,
No, I'd take Landry.
Landry.
Doug Baldwin,
I would take
Landry, and I'm the Doug Baldwin lover.
Golden Tate,
I would take Tate.
I would take Tate as well.
Jeremy Maclin.
I
would take Landry.
I'll get 2 more for you. Alan Hearns.
Landry.
I have them statted almost identically. I think what kind of league are we
We're
talking?
in standard.
In a standard, I'd take Hearns.
And Michael Floyd.
I would take Floyd.
I would take Landry.
So I just to back up the numbers I said, I have him for 92 and 1,000 and 5 touchdowns. So I guess I'm a regression. That's my official stance based on that. He might move up a little bit more, but it's hard for me to see him getting the touchdowns. So
yeah, and the way that I see this is not so much like you have to regress or you have to get better. The regress.
Play the game, Jason.
No, it's regress or impress. I am.
yeah,
I think
he
he's
can
going to
impress you
next
with
year.
the same numbers.
He can
Exactly.
impress you. It's
That would be-
positive regression.
No, that would
I did it.
that would be impressive to me if he put up the same numbers. So there you go.
Exactly.
All right, next guy. Let's talk about Kirk Cousins, Captain Kirk himself.
Yes.
His phasers were set to fantasy championship. Last
They
year.
absolutely were.
That was an impressive end of the year. We got the "you like that" scream, which is always good for radio. Over 4,100 yards.
Yeah.
29 touchdowns, 5
Look.
rushing TDs, which is impressive.
Cousins had an overall, when you look at his final numbers, a very strong year. The 5 rushing touchdowns certainly helps that. I believe he was the only quarterback in the league to throw at least 1 touchdown in every single game last year.
Also, number 1 completion percentage, just under 70%.
Also, the only quarterback to take a knee on the goal
When he
line
should have spiked it. Look,
before the half. So
in the final 3 games of the season, he threw 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, including that final game where it was the ultimate inefficiency. I believe he threw the ball about 4 times. And then they pulled him out because they didn't really need to play. But he still crushed. He was on this high. Now, he didn't really impress in the playoff game, so that was a bit of a downer. However, I am really rising on the Washington offense as a whole. You kind of thought, well, it's Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed or bust for me. But like I said, the value of Deshaun Jackson is ridiculous. You throw in Josh Doctson, who I think is a talent that can come in and make an immediate impact, and it's, I think, very possible that he can come in right away and take over for Pierre Garçon. You got Matt Jones, who at least the team likes, and he had flashes of just huge things. So I think overall the Washington offense, maybe you don't consider, like when you think high-power offense, you don't think of Washington, but I am starting to feel that way. I am. When I initially ranked out Cousins, I thought, oh, he'll be a quarterback 1 for sure. The stats didn't come out that way. And I thought, oh, well, apparently I'm down on Cousins. But in the last few weeks of just when I'm diving back in, I am growing warmer and warmer on Kirk Cousins of being a solid quarterback for the entire year for fantasy.
yeah, I have when it comes to the quarterback, to me, I really look at the weapons. That's something that I've always been high on. Is do they have the weapons to help them produce? And we saw that change in Kirk Cousins last year. He's been one of the biggest enigmas to me is who is he, right? Because you can watch tape and be sure that he is the worst quarterback you've ever seen. And you can watch tape and think this guy is a Pro Bowl quarterback. And
you
that
can
tape
watch
can
the
be the
same
same
game.
Yeah. But with him, you saw a change after that Week 8 bye last year. And we can't forget that is the exact time that Deshaun Jackson came back from the injury. And so he was back for the second half of the year where all of a sudden a lot less interceptions being thrown, maybe taking the top off the back off the defense and allowing him some more work to some more room to work. I want to go back and kind of study a little bit more film on Cousins because I'm still a little unsure, but the fact that they seem healthy right now, they've re-signed Reed and they've added Josh Doctson says to me that there's just more weapons to be able to have Kirk Cousins replicate what he was able to do the second half of the year. I'm still viewing him as a streamer, not a guy I want to draft.
Let me ask you this question because this is a fair one. Because when I look at Cousins, he's top 10 in every category, and that doesn't always tell the whole story. Consistency, you can end in that category. But you guys just said these things that impress you. What impresses me is 11 interceptions. Okay?
Yeah.
Blake Bortles, who's everybody's fantasy darling, or a lot of people's, led the league. Cousins was outside the top 10 in interceptions. Why would you not draft Cousins based on how he finished the year over Bortles?
Well, the weird thing about what Cousins did, and this is where I was speaking to, maybe it was Deshaun Jackson really making that difference. But in the in the first 6 games of last year, Kirk Cousins had 8 interceptions. He was among the league leaders in interceptions, and then all of a sudden, the rest of the year,
Bortles was like, I can do it all year long.
Bortles really showed who's boss. But yeah, I mean, it's really a question of which Kirk Cousins is the Kirk Cousins, because while he ended that way, you have the tale of 2 completely different players in Kirk Cousins. So the question is he going to regress from his top 10 in all those categories, or is he going to impress next year? And I am, for the first time in my life,
Yes!
saying I think Kirk Cousins is going to impress next
We did
year.
it, America.
So if he's going to impress, then I'll take him every day at his value compared to where Bortles is going.
Absolutely.
So, all right, we're going to bring in.
He is impressed for me as well.
Yeah, we're going to bring in Jamey Eisenberg of CBS Sports, bring up some more names, talk through these guys, see where he is, where his mind is at when it comes to some of these
that
impress or
mind of
regress.
Jamey Eisenberg.
That's right.
You talking to me?
The fantasy footballers are pleased to bring on the one, Jamey Eisenberg from CBS Sports. How are you doing today, Jamey?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We are doing very well, my friend, and we want to continue the game that we've been playing on the show, where we are going to talk about, will guys regress or will they impress? And the guy I want to start this whole thing out was the RB1 last year, a pretty big surprise for the fantasy football community. DeVante Freeman willed his way to being the top running back through catching the ball, through scoring just a boatload of touchdowns. So how are you feeling about Freeman coming into this season?
Well, first of all, boatload is one of my favorite words, so I appreciate you phrasing it that way. I think he's going to regress. To what level, I think we'll have to find out how good Tevin Coleman could potentially be. I get a chance every year, which I'm thankful for, to go to the first owners meetings, which is where all the coaches are there, and they have a breakfast, an annual breakfast with each league, AFC and NFC. And so I go to that every year. I talk to Dan Quinn this season about his running backs, and I asked him, and it was kind of telling what he said, in that we feel we have a unique combination of the 2 guys, of Tevin Coleman and DeVante Freeman. And he kept referencing how DeVante Freeman's so good catching the ball in the backfield, and how they want to get Tevin Coleman and his explosiveness on the field more for his carries. So I think you'll see Freeman's touches come down. He's still going to be a great PPR running back. He's still worth drafting, I think, as a back end number 1 running back, certainly starter, depending on how you want to build your team. But I think anybody that probably reaches for him in the first round, maybe the first 15 to 20 picks, might be a little bit disappointed, because I don't think he's going to return the same level of success like we saw last year.
Yeah, I think that's the difficulty, is the value for fantasy owners. And this is Andy, by the way. Let me ask you this. Does that make Tevin Coleman, based on how you're feeling about that backfield, a value for fantasy owners? I mean, do you think that if he produces early, if he controls the fumbles, he can be that first and second down back and make some big plays?
Yeah, I think his value is amazing. You're talking about a guy that is probably going to go after round 8. I think it's pretty safe to say, depending on how your league is built. So, as maybe your 4th running back, and these are the type of guys. It's really where Freeman was last year. Nobody really gave him much of a chance to be a starter for your fantasy team. It was kind of an afterthought with where he was. Yep. And so I think PPR leagues, he's going to be probably a disappointment. We didn't see him really using that role. And again, Freeman is so good catching the ball in the backfield. The one thing that was so impressive about Freeman, which I think Coleman needs to work on, is his pass protection. That's going to get these young running backs on the field quicker than some of these other guys. And that's why it takes some of these younger running backs a little bit of time before you see them in these passing down situations. So, yeah, I think Coleman's got a great chance to help a lot of people this year. It could be a 4 or 5 game stretch where he's very good. And just go back to last year at this time, going into training camp, it was they're going to compete for the starting job. And then they both had the hamstring problems, and Freeman just came out of his better. But you remember the first 2 games, Coleman was technically the starter until he hit his wrist. That's when Freeman took over.
Yeah, you had horror stories from fantasy owners last year when Coleman started the year as the starter and people dropped DeVante Freeman from their rosters. And so, good take there. I want to turn to New York's backfield, the Jets, because Matt Forte is kind of a polarizing fantasy name right now. Obviously, he has a long track record of making fantasy owners happy, but I never get very confident when a guy at his age switches, his landscape changes, and now he goes to a backfield where they paid money, they signed Bilal Powell, Kyrie Robinson's there, but there is a lot of different opinions out there. We get a lot of feedback. People love Matt Forte. I think we're lower on him. Where do you sit with Forte's impact in New York?
You might as well just hit repeat on what you just said and pretend it came out of my mouth. I'm not a big fan for a lot of the reasons you just listed. The one saving grace for him, just to play devil's advocate, is Chan Gailey. Chan Gailey's history with running backs is fantastic. I mean, look what he did with Chris Ivory last year. Got him his first 1,000-yard season, got him to 30 catches, which I think nobody ever thought that he can get, 5, let alone 30. And so with Forte's ability to catch the ball, it's almost similar to a DeVante Freeman situation where his reception total will be so key to what his fantasy production is. I mean, last year, Forte obviously had the 3 missed games, only 1 game over 100 yards rushing, and that was week 1. But, he's still so good at the total yards. So I think in PPR leagues, you can still be okay with Forte. But I think for him, the way he's going to make or break his draft value by the end of the season is that exact word, his value. Where he goes in drafts will be the determining factor if he helps you out or he hurt your team. Because if you reach for him, I've seen him going around 2. To me, that's no way I would touch him. But in PPR, if I get him around 4, I'd be okay with it. I don't think he's going to be there, but that's kind of where I would settle for him. And round 5 or later in standard leagues, again, I'm never going to get him because his name value and what people think he's going to do is going to push him up into a level, which I think is what you're alluding to, of where he'll go. But, yeah, if I could stay away from Matt Forte this year, I would absolutely do so.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement there. This is Jason. There's a guy that I am high on that I know a lot of other people, including those in this room, are not necessarily high on. So I'm very genuinely curious your take on whether this guy is going to regress or impress next year. Sticking in backfield realm, it is Latavius Murray for the Oakland Raiders.
I like him. And it's funny because I think, you're right. Similar to Forte, he could be somewhat polarizing. I love the offensive line there. What they did this offseason, I would not be surprised if they're the second best offensive line in the NFL behind Dallas. So that's going to make things really open up for Murray. Now, granted, he's not going to be a dominant guy, but if you just take a guy, I think that we saw last year, at his first 1,000-yard season, did I'll say moderate job of catching the ball. He needs to improve in that regard. And I think DeAndre Washington is somebody that's going to push him a little bit, but again, I don't think he's going to take him off the field a ton. Jack Del Rio talked a lot. I mean, we've all seen the quotes about wanting to add to the backfield. But when I saw him at the owners' meetings, I asked him, are you trying to replace Latavius Murray, or are you trying just to complement Latavius Murray? And he said, oh, no, don't misconstrue what we've been saying. We're trying to complement Latavius Murray. So maybe he loses a few touches, but I think that offensive line, I think the defense is going to be better, so they're going to be more competitive game, not chasing points. And the division's got a little bit worse, with some of the guys leaving teams. The Justin Houston injury, I know he's more of a pass rusher, but, the changes in Kansas City, the changes in Denver, San Diego defense, I think, is still going to be horrible. So there are a lot of favorable things about Latavius Murray. I got him in the 4th round of a PPR mock draft yesterday. I had to take him there, but I still like, having him on my team.
That seems like pretty good value for Murray. So let's shift over to a pass catcher, New Orleans. Brandin Cooks, highly touted, first-round pick. Last year, we finally caught at least half of a season of a glimpse of what Cooks can do. But you still have to factor in the fact that the first half of the season, Cooks was simply not that great. Can he be the one? Will he be impacted by Coby Fleener coming to town, Michael Thomas being drafted by the team? How do you feel about Cooks?
Well, I think if you want Brandin Cooks on your fantasy team, keep telling people about the first half of last year. Don't tell them that Drew Brees missed a game because of a shoulder injury and played through a game when he hurt his shoulder against Tampa Bay. I believe it was week 2. So I don't think Brees was right. I don't think that offense was right. They were still trying to get over the loss of Jimmy Graham and sort of how to adjust, and still going through this identity crisis of, we just added Max Unger, we paid Mark Ingram. Are we a running team? Are we a passing team? I think they figured out their identity, and I think bringing back Brees, even with the contract situation still somewhat unsettled, but he's on the roster, obviously he's safe. Bringing back Sean Payton, giving him the contract extension, they know what they are. They have a very small window now of, can we get into another playoff situation, Super Bowl situation with this current group that we have, and try and rebuild our defense on the fly. Very similar to what the Carolina Panthers did a couple years ago. So I think if Brees stays healthy 16 games, Brandin Cooks stays healthy 16 games, the 8 games that they play indoors are going to be fantastic because that's the type of team that they are. So I think Cooks is tremendous value. I think he's going to be a great wide receiver this year. He's in my top 10 in my rankings. I think in some cases I might have him too low. I think he's going to have an excellent third-year type of breakout season that we see from some of those guys.
It was just a quick follow-up there. What do you think about Willie Snead then? If you have all this love for Cooks, do you think that they can sustain enough value for fantasy wide receivers to also give Snead maybe a low-end wide receiver 2, or at least a 3 at the worst?
Yeah, I think he could be a 3. I think the thing with Snead that's going to help him is the addition of Michael Thomas, because people are going to look, in terms of his value, people are going to look at Thomas and say, wow, they added a guy. Snead was an undrafted free agent that they, became sort of a byproduct of need last year with Colston struggling and not really having another option. I saw Willie Snead at a charity golf event this offseason. I said, what was the difference for you last year? And he's like, look, I just got a chance to play. And so when you're in this type of offense with a great quarterback like that, the one thing that he talked about, which, the addition of Thomas, the addition of Fleener may not come to fruition, but he said, we want to be 1,000-yard receivers. And I think he was like 13 yards shy, something like that. He was in the 980s in that range. Cooks was over 1,000, so if that's something that's going to push him and motivate him, and obviously contract now becomes a factor for him, the lower Willie Snead falls, the better you're going to be, and he's definitely somebody you want on your roster.
I think it's kind of incredible that, you can have a team finding its identity with Drew Brees, and then he still leads the league in passing yardage. I mean, it's just incredible, and Brees is one of our favorite kind of later round quarterback targets just because of where he is going. So I want to ask you about one last backfield before we let you go, and we appreciate you coming on the show. And I want you to settle another kind of inner studio debate here that I have with Jason. And that is, I'm finding TJ Yeldon as one of my favorite values in the draft. I think people are overestimating the impact, and it's interesting to hear you talk about Chan Gailey and the impact he had on Ivory in New York, with Ivory now shifting over to Jacksonville. So where do you fall on kind of like the carry split? Is Yeldon only a value in PPR or half-point leagues, or where do you see, do you think that Yeldon will be a value overall?
I think it'll be a value. I mean, this is kind of one of the backfields I would tend to avoid if I could, unless I get one of the guys at a good price. I just think that it's pretty telling that you invested a second-round pick in Yeldon, and he seemed to show good flashes. I mean, I think we can, I'll take a step back and look at it and say he needs to be better. But he did show some good signs, the injury situation, that he had with his knee, the fact that they had so little success at the goal line and those struggles that they had. And it's probably not a fair situation to put on him because he wasn't part of it at times, when they were going with Gerhardt and Denard Robinson for whatever stupid reason. So I think this is one of those things that if I'm drafting right now, I'd rather wait and get Yeldon and let somebody else pay for Ivory. But I really want to see what happens in training camp and how they use both of these guys. There are, the kind of the thing we have to do in this business, and I'm sure you guys follow this as well, is you have to tell people what to do now. But you also, in the back of your mind, want to wait and see what develops. And this is one of those things where I want to wait and see what develops. But if I had to, look at these two guys right now, I would definitely rather have Yeldon than Ivory. But I think that Ivory's touchdowns, by the end of the year, you could see Ivory's numbers, one of those guys that just at the end of the year, you're like, God, he was terrible. But like Frank Gore, he still finished at a certain number ranking-wise, just because of his overall production. I think that could be where Ivory maybe is better than Yeldon, but I still rather have Yeldon on a week-to-week basis based on what I can get him for.
Love it. Love the takes. Thank you so much, Jamey. Where can people find you on Twitter, my friend?
Oh, it's very simple. Just my name, JameyEisenberg.
And please, Foot Clan, if you haven't, which would be ridiculous if you haven't, go check out the CBS Fantasy Pod. It's one of the best out there. And Jamey's also cranking out good content on the web. So we'll hope to bring you back on soon, and take it easy.
Oh, it'll be my pleasure. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, special thanks to Jamey Eisenberg, CBS Sports, one of the best in the business. And to be honest, when we got started in this, they were some of the forerunners in terms of just the best content. So I'm really thankful to have him on and appreciate all the impact that he's made on the industry, as well as Adam Azer, Dave Richard, and all the CBS people there. So let's go ahead and jump into the mailbag.
Mailbag.
Yeah! All right. You got a question? You can send it to us. Go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. Click the Submit a Question button. You could also leave us a voicemail question, 302-464-TFFB. First question comes from Nick in Akron, Canada.
Bonjour. I got psyched out by the Akron.
Yeah, he said just kidding. It's Akron, Ohio. Thanks for the bonjour.
Well,
he got you.
Oh, Nick did it.
Slow clap from Mike. He said, thanks for all you do. You guys are so-so. You have
I fell right into that trap.
Yeah, you did. It was great. You have helped. I had to read the question quick before you got your eyes on it. You have helped me withstand a few victories on his way to a #FootClan title.
Oh.
He can only keep one of these guys, full point PPR. Allen Robinson for a 4, Ryan Matthews for a 7, Eric Decker for an 8, Jeremy Hill for an 11, and then he said, we're seriously great. Thanks again.
This one is much easier to dig through than the trap that I was led into. I feel led astray by you, Nick. But that's Allen Robinson for a 4th, not even close.
I completely agree. I like looking at Decker in the 8th, but when you have Robinson and the PPR numbers that he's going to put up in this type of a league, it's a lock and loaded for me.
I disagree that it is not close, but I do agree.
Who is it? Who's your?
Mine would actually be Ryan Matthews in the 7th. I think is a really good value, but I think you'll be able to draft Ryan.
You'll
Matthews
be able to draft
later.
him in the 5th or the 6th.
No, exactly. So I mean, Robinson is my pick. I just don't think it's like home run.
All right, Garrison in California says, "Hey, I got the first overall pick in my fantasy league. It's standard scoring, and I'm having trouble deciding between Gurley, Bell, and Brown. Who should I pick in a standard scoring league?"
Yeah, I can see the difficulty there. However, I understand it's standard, and you think, oh, Antonio Brown PPR, but for me, standard, I'm still going to go with Antonio Brown over Gurley, who's in a bad offense. I know he can. Adrian Peterson will his way into top fantasy production. I'm not denying that fact, but there will be a ceiling because of the offense. Le'Veon Bell, the injury is still has me a little bit wary, and Antonio Brown, two finishes back-to-back years as the top wide receiver. Give me Brown.
I'm going to say that while I agree with everything you just said, and 100%
Except
of
for
it.
the pick?
No, 100% of it.
Okay.
All of it. I'm actually not going to take who you took because I'm not going to take a guy on this list.
You don't have that option.
In a standard – yes, he's the first overall pick. I'm saying if I'm in a standard league, first overall, I'm taking Odell Beckham Jr. I've got him ranked highest in my wide receivers in a standard league. He is a touchdown monster. His yards per reception are great. He's so young. I think, as crazy as it sounds, we might not have seen yet what Odell Beckham can be. His ceiling he has not reached yet. And so I'm going to take the risk there because I don't think it's a huge
That sounded like Yoda.
Really?
His ceiling he has not reached yet.
Well, there you go. I'm as smart as.
Sounded like a sentence to me. But
it sounded what? Okay.
Either way, that would be my pick. If not, if you're between those three guys, I would go Antonio Brown.
I think I'm going to say Brown for one of the first times. I'm going to say Brown.
All right. But
Brown,
I like
Brown if you
thinking outside the box here with the Beckham.
Brown if you want to be safe, Lev Bell if you don't. And you're really in good shape with
So
all,
it's not
with all
Gurley
three.
consideration for you?
No.
Okay.
So, all right, let's go to a voicemail question.
Hey, guys, this is C-Balls. I once heard a statement made about NFL wide receivers that guys make the biggest jump from their rookie year to their sophomore in year 2. Do you guys have any data to back this up? Because I feel like if it's not that, it might be the third year where you see the biggest jump for a breakout wide receiver. Anyways, if you could discuss and let me know, I'd appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Bye.
So I have a quick response for you on that one. Generally, the third-year rule is what you're thinking about, where third-year wide receivers make a big jump. And the data backs up that is true. There are third-year wide receivers, a lot of them, that have made a very large jump. That being said, the rule statistically should probably be something like the second to fourth year rule, because it depends on where the guy's drafted and the opportunity, and the data backs that up as well. Depending on where they're drafted, some guys it's that second year, some guys it's the fourth year. And so really what you're saying is that at that point you're saying some wide receivers that have been drafted make a leap. And I think that's the big point here is look for the guys second or third year that are in a position to make a leap, to be in the right. Do they have the pedigree? Okay, Jason talks about Watkins, the season where so many great wide receivers were drafted. Watkins hasn't had the opportunity. This is an opportunity for him to make a leap. Is this Watkins' third year?
Yes, it is.
So Watkins' third year, the pedigree of a first-round draft pick.
The opportunity ahead.
It's not very often that you have a wide receiver drafted in the 5th, 6th, 7th round that makes these type of leaps. Statistically, it just doesn't happen. So you're talking about, opportunity mixed with those things. So the third-year rule is a nice general rule for you to apply. It's a good way to look for wide receivers.
Yeah.
Like, just look for some guys that are going into the third year that haven't had monster seasons.
There is definitely, I feel like a little bit more and more guys from going from 1 to 2, they have their breakout there.
Yeah.
But I agree that the rule that I look for is the third year.
Yeah. So, okay, let me get one more question in here before we have to close out the show. Let's go to this one here. Bryson in Salt Lake City says, "Hey guys, my league mates admit that they plan to sabotage my auction draft.
Good for them.
What can I do to stop them?" He's 99% sure they are serious because he's won the league 4 out of the past 5 years, and they are sick of me.
Wow, that's great.
Also, he says he has a question about which guy to keep, but I only have a list of one. He only
I would keep
included
that
one.
guy.
So I would go with that guy. So to the sabotage question, here's what I say.
This.
How do you sabotage someone?
You end up sabotaging yourself. I mean, if the league is trying to how do you do that in an auction? You try to gang up and be like, "Hey, we're not going to let him buy any of these guys. We're gonna overspend and keep all the good guys from." Well, then they're going to overspend and they're going to make bad moves. You're about to get your next Foot Clan title again. That's how I see it.
I would say the sabotage comes with the territory too. I mean, if you're going to win titles, you're going to have people trying to mess you up. Jason has historically tried to ruin my off seasons over and over and over again.
Fun.
Every time I post that I want to list a guy for trade, within like 5 minutes, he has posted his guys he wants for trade.
Yeah, bump you down.
And knocked me down the list. So now it's just a battle. But that's a natural part. Certainly if I was talking to your league mates, I would say you never want to actually collude with one another.
No.
In terms of like trading, right? Like if a sabotage is done by trade, that is collusion. But otherwise, it just comes with the territory. And like Jason said, let them spin their minds into a mess because you've won so many leagues.
Look, you look
and
them
also
in the
get
eye.
me in your league.
You look him in the eye and you say, "Can't stand this. I know you planned it. I'ma set it straight, this Watergate. Oh, can't stand rocking when I'm in the..." All right. Sorry.
I had your back there, Mike.
I appreciate
And
it.
if you do that, please videotape it and tweet us.
And you need the full cop sunglasses and the mustache and kick open the door.
I like you guys jump in together very well. I am impressed. This is good. We've had more requests, by the way, for your mailbag drop and now your show after the show Primal Scream to be ringtones. So I'm gonna have to look into this because I thought the demand wasn't there. But all right, we got to wrap this up.
Speaking of the Primal Scream, it's coming up.
We do. We got show after the show coming. But before I close out the show, I want to remind everybody, because this is our last chance to mention it before Sunday. Go to podcastawards.com, vote. If you vote, tweet at us. Let us know. You'll get an entry. We're going to give away that Lev Bell jersey, give away a spot in our listener league.
#FootClan vote.
#FootClan vote. So don't forget to do that.
Please vote for us every day if you remember.
Yeah, we appreciate everything you do for us. This is why we do the show. This is why we do it all year round, baby. It's time to win those Foot Clan titles. We'll catch you on Tuesday. Take care.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.